Hi there, welcome to another edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm Adrian Atkinson. We remind you to stay safe during these perilous times. More rains are expected this weekend, so please stay away from flooded streets and do not be shy to seek shelter at higher ground. Up first is the news. Don't touch that remote. There is so much more in store for you. It all begins now.
Whenever you hear the following tone, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, ODPEM, will be giving information on an emergency situation affecting the island. Please be on the alert and listen to your radio and television for further information. This was a test of the emergency alert system, brought to you by ODPEM.
Good day, I'm Lorraine Mendez and this is your JIS News for Tuesday, November 10. Motorists can now traverse Bogwalk Gorge in St. Catherine. The roadway was opened Monday by the National Works Agency, the NWA. It's one of 24 roadways across the island that have been impacted by the outer bands of Tropical Storm Eta on the weekend. Work is ongoing to clear blockages on 23 other thoroughfares. In St. Andrew, the Gordontown Road, Irishtown Road, Cane River Road and Hagley Gap to Silver Hill Gap are still blocked. Work continues on the Bull Bay Main Road in St. Andrew to clear debris. Waterlogged roadways in St. Thomas are being cleared by NWA teams. They include roads from Hordley to Haining and Bath, Pleasant Hill to Hector's River, Windsor Forest to Mahogany Vale, Cedar Valley and Landui, Morant River to Potosi, as well as Bethel to Richmond Vale and Mount Vernon Gap. The NWA says it expects to clear the Wait a Bit to Hector's River roadway in Trelawney, which has been rendered impossible due to a landslide. The team is also working to clear debris from sections of wire fence to Warsop in Trelawney, the Cupis to Colonel Ridge Roadway in Clarendon, and Manchester's Colleyville to Ballynure. In the meantime, the NWA is monitoring rising floodwaters in Newmarket St. Elizabeth that's due to swelling underground aquifers in the area. Meanwhile, several downed traffic signals are now back in operation. The stoplights along Marcus Garvey Drive have been restored. So too traffic lights at the intersection of Oxford Road and Belmont Road, Caledonia Road and Old Hope Road. Motorists are advised to exercise caution along Chesterfield Drive in Kingston as the traffic signal there is still out of operation. The lights at Creek and St. James Streets in St. James are also down. Work continues on the traffic lights along the Christiana Bypass in Manchester, which was affected by lightning strike. The economic loss to agriculture crops from recent heavy rains is estimated at over $2 billion, affecting approximately 12,000 farmers. Agriculture Minister Floyd Green says the dispatching of emergency funds has already begun in most affected parishes, and farmers are being assisted with salvaging produce from the field.
Some of them would need immediate access to things like pesticides, insecticides, fungicides. We're going to provide, and already we have started to do some emergency funds dispatching to our hardest hit parishes, so Clarendon, St. Elizabeth, St. Thomas. We've already started some dispatch, and we're now looking at our budget to see what we can carve out to reallocate so that we can get to our farmers as quickly as possible.
Minister Green was speaking during an assessment tour of farms in St. Elizabeth recently. $15 million in emergency funding has been allocated to assist farmers. Among the produce most impacted are lettuce, cabbage, tomato, sweet peppers, melons, and cucumbers. The Agriculture Minister says farmers who engaged in protective agriculture, such as greenhouse farming, were not as hard hit, and only a few have lost roofs due to the strong wind. He's urging other farmers, where possible, to have a mix of farming methodologies. 16 of the 17 schools participating in government's face-to-face teaching have started classes today. The start of the two-week trial was postponed on Monday due to heavy rains, which caused flooding in several parishes on the weekend. 16 of the schools have indicated that they're ready for classes, with arrangements in place to help them observe the COVID-19 protocols. Yallas High in St. Thomas will start Wednesday as the school's compound has been affected by the rains. And finally, the Judiciary is making a recommendation for the cancellation of indefinite detention of persons with mental illness in police lockup. This is among suggestions put forward by the Judiciary in its Mental Health Offenders Enquiry Committee report. Chair of the committee, Puny Judge Justice Georgiana Fraser, says there were several challenges found within the system for which recommendations have been made.
The committee has identified that transportation issues, the timely submission of psychiatric review reports, the failure to implement and or maintain registers, review registers, and this is a responsibility that falls on the court administrators and registrar of the Supreme Court. Difficulty locating family members are some of the reasons why persons who are mentally disordered end up spending these long periods of time in custody.
Justice Fraser was speaking recently at the Court Administration Division's conversation with the Judiciary. She says the committee aims to probe the reasons for the shortcomings and craft a principle-based report that would recommend workable solutions. The Mental Health Offenders Inquiry Committee was commissioned in June to assess how the court treats with mentally ill persons who come in conflict with the law and are being detained in correctional institutions for extended periods of time. The full report can be accessed on the Court Administration Division's website at cad.gov.jm. And that's it for JI's News Today. I'm Lorraine Mendez. Thanks for watching.
To properly carry out a hand rub, apply a palmful of the product in your cupped hand, covering all surfaces. Rub your hands palm to palm. Rub your right palm over the back of your left hand with interlaced fingers and vice versa. Rub your hands palm to palm with fingers interlaced. Rub the back of your fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked. Rotationally rub backwards and forwards the clasped fingers of your right hand in your left palm and vice versa. Once your hands are dry, they are now safe.
Up next, details from Prime Minister Andrew Holness on the government's response to the impact of recent flood rains across the island. Watch this.
Government prioritizing distribution of smart devices to schools. Prime Minister congratulates 46th President-elect of the United States of America and pledges assistance to those affected by heavy rains. You're watching Jamaica House Weekly. I'm Anthony Morgan. Prime Minister Andrew Holness was in the St. Andrew West Central area this past week, handing out devices to aid in virtual learning. He handed over 45 tablets at Drews Avenue Primary and Infant School, while students at Seaward Primary and Junior High received 48 tablets. Mr. Holness said though there had been some disquiet about the speed at which tablets were being distributed, he reasoned that the issue was not unique to the island.
These devices have to be manufactured overseas, that the global supply chains have been disrupted, and that they are now highly in demand all over the world. People want them, and therefore you're going to find that the prices of these devices may exhibit some movement upward.
The devices are part of the Tablets in School program being executed by eLearning Jamaica. So far, over 20,000 of the 40,000 devices have been distributed. Prime Minister Holness used the handover ceremony to give instructions about the tablets being issued.
I want us to, and I'm not saying take a step back, but I want us to be absolutely certain that the devices that we are getting meet those computing and durability requirements. They are also easy to operate, and these are devices that can be integrated in the long term in our teaching and learning practices in Jamaica.
In the meantime, Mr. Holness is imploring parents to keep their sick children home once the pilot for face-to-face learning gets underway.
If your child is ill, then you have to ensure that based upon the Disaster Risk Management Act and the orders in that act, that you don't send an ill child to school. And I use the term ill because if it is any flu-like symptoms, you should err on the side of caution. and not send that child to school, get medical attention before you venture. Because we know that there are some parents who will just carry the child to the school gate, leave the child, and take off.
To properly plan for the safe reopening of schools, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has selected 17 institutions for a pilot project to test its feasibility. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has pledged to mobilize resources to flood-affected communities across the island. Rains in recent weeks have wreaked havoc on the island's infrastructure, washing away roads, marooning communities, and causing major damage to roadways.
The government is already mobilized. We have already made some allocations to do the immediate response. We are watching this new set of rains now very carefully. I'm really hoping that it does not create any further damage than what was created a week or so ago. We will do another assessment by next week, and we will probably have to update our calculations that we made regarding damage assessments, and we may very well have to do further reallocations in our budget.
On the weekend, the Prime Minister congratulated the 46th President and Vice President-elect of the United States of America. Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris were announced Saturday as the winners of the election. In congratulating the duo, Mr. Holness noted that the United States would have its first woman and person of color as Vice President, who is also of Jamaican heritage. The Prime Minister also expressed a hope for continued strong bilateral relations with the island's largest trading partner. And on Sunday, Mr. Holness extended heartfelt condolences to the wife and children of Constable Kirkland Plummer, who was killed in Harwood, Clarendon. Preliminary reports indicate that Constable Plummer was responding to illegal gun salutes at a party in the parish when he was attacked. The Prime Minister said the perpetrators of this heinous act would be relentlessly pursued and brought to justice. And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Be sure to join us next time for more of the news stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Hurricanes can strike at any time. In the event of one, be prepared to act quickly. If a hurricane watch or warning has been issued, review your home disaster response plan. Map out likely routes to evacuate if your home is at risk, and confirm with relatives or friends you plan to stay with. Also, confirm the location of the nearest shelter. Check your emergency supplies and restock if necessary. Remember, disasters do happen, so be prepared.
As more persons are at home, concerns have been raised about domestic violence amid fatigue and anxiety. Coming up, the Gender Affairs Ministry's drive to minimize disagreements within the home.
It is no secret. Jamaica experiences reports of domestic violence.
Sometimes he beat me in front of the picnic them.
There is no excuse for abuse, and the government has implemented a plan with the hope of beating domestic violence out of the country. The data on gender-based violence says much. In Jamaica, 1 in every 4 women is abused. Globally, 1 in every 3 women is a victim. Coupled with that, domestic violence has no regard for age or status. Men are also victims, so too girls as young as age 15, who are being physically, sexually, and emotionally abused in intimate partner relationships. With year-on occurrences of all forms of gender-based violence, the government has been courting several plans to eliminate the act. Finally, a perfect relationship has been formed and has given birth to a 10-year plan for ending this cowardly act. The National Strategic Action Plan to Eliminate Gender-Based Violence in Jamaica, NSAP-GBV for short.
The period is 2017 to 2027, 2017 to 2027. And that plan is predicated on the due diligence framework, which allows us to have 5 strategic priority areas. The first one is prevention. How do we engage key stakeholders so that they become a part of the solution and not a part of the problem?
A major component of the prevention strategic area is the implementation of a No Excuse for Abuse social media-driven campaign.
We are very fortunate to have been blessed with a 3-year MOU through our partner, UN Women, that will allow us to do a 6-month campaign. We think that this campaign should make a huge difference, and we plan to have it rolled out in a very robust manner across communities and engaging different players at different times. The second strategic priority area is protection. That looks at how do we ensure that once the person becomes a victim, there is the adequate provision for shelter, there is provision for psychosocial support and rehabilitation. How do we look at the perpetrator as well?
The third priority strategic area covers the investigation, prosecution and enforcement of court orders.
So once a person has been a victim, becomes a victim, what sort of mechanisms are in place to ensure that the victim gets redress and gets compensation if that is what is required? And if there is a protection order that is required, how do we ensure that the protection order is taken out and that it is enforced? And if there is an issue with compliance, which happens in some cases, where the perpetrator decides to violate the protection order, how do we ensure that it is enforced? And how do we ensure that the victim has protection? The fourth strategic priority area looks at compensation, reparation and redress. How do we ensure that victims and survivors have adequate compensation for redress for wrongs that have been done? And how do we compensate? What forms of redress are appropriate? What is affordable given our limited fiscal space? The fifth and final strategic priority area is data collection and the systems by which we have a management of data. Gone are the days where persons talk from their heads about gender-based violence, because we now have a survey findings, a set of survey findings that's put together in a report. It's called the Women's Health Survey, and that survey for us is very important.
Released in 2017, the Women's Health Survey was conducted by the Inter-American Development Bank, UN Women, and the Statistical Institute of Jamaica. It provides facts, not anecdotal information about the violence some persons face. Eliminating gender-based violence will not be a band-aid fix. With the help of local and international partners, government has crafted a research-driven program to involve major stakeholders. The goal is simple yet revolutionary: to bring an end once and for all to this scourge that has crippled families and impacted our country psychologically and financially.
Practice good hygiene by washing your hands frequently using soap and water. Here's how you should do it while conserving water. Turn on the tap to wet your hands, then turn off the pipe. Lather your hands and the tap with soap. Turn on the tap and wash your hands, back, front, and in between fingers. Use some of the water to wash off the tap, then turn it off. Dry your hands with disposable hand towels. If you don't have running water, use a hand rub containing 62% or more alcohol. If hand sanitizers are not available, rubbing alcohol, Dettol, white rum, or household bleach will do the trick. And if all else fails, let hand washing and the handling of potable water be a two-person event. Each person will take turns pouring and washing hands with sitting water. Now is a good time to consider installing a tap on your containers to reduce the risk of water contamination. Faucets can be easily attached to drums, buckets, or 5-gallon water bottles. And to ensure that the outside of the containers are clean when recapping, disinfect it with hand rub containing alcohol that's 62% or more. The 5 R's of water conservation are also necessary to practice. Reduce water wastage by investing in water-saving devices. Reuse water at least twice before discarding.
replace leaking pipes, faucets, and other plumbing equipment. Recycle wastewater and use it for gardening, car washing, or cleaning of public spaces. And reclaim water through rainwater harvesting. We all must play our part to ensure there's water to combat the coronavirus and stave off prolonged drought.
Welcome to Jamaica's first national shelter for victims of domestic abuse.
The place is nice and clean and ready, except for one and two things. But I'd say I'm happy that we are now ready.
Thursday, October 15, 2020, is a day of achievement for the Ministry of Gender Affairs and hope for women and children who need a space to escape abuse and start anew.
We can take in, I would call them clients, and take care of a family. We actually have most of the rooms ready. There are just 2 unfurnished rooms. The other rooms that are ready can take additional furniture because we want to make the facility as comfortable as possible. So we can do with television sets and bunk beds and desk, toys for the kids and so on.
The location of the state-run shelter cannot be revealed for security purposes, but it houses spacious studio and 1-bedroom facilities.
Canadian High Commissioner toured with me, and the former EU ambassador and the Canadian High Commissioner have been very much involved in our efforts to get these shelters. And I know she's happy this morning that she has come and found that this shelter is real.
I am delighted to be here with Minister Grange today at the first of several nationally funded women's shelters. We all recognize, Canada in particular, the importance of having safe spaces for women and their families. We have seen that the COVID-19 pandemic has put additional pressures on families as they are in isolation, and none too soon. This is a timely undertaking, and I'm heartened to see that it has the space and the capacity to be able to welcome women and their families.
The facility was purchased in 2018 and is the first of 3 properties bought by the ministry to serve as national shelters. According to a 2019 report by the United Nations, Jamaica has the 2nd highest rate of femicides in the world. That is the killing of a woman or girl, in particular by a man, and an account of her gender. Also, Jamaica's first Women's Health Survey in 2016 revealed that 1 in 4 women has been physically abused by a male partner. Minister Grange is urging victims of domestic abuse to call the ministry for help. The Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport can be contacted at 876-978-7654. Victims may also contact the island's 2 domestic violence intervention centers at 876-978-6003 and 876-702-5120 or their nearest police station.
I'm Chef Martin McGinley, Executive Chef at Round Hill Resort and Spa, and I started cooking at 15 and I've continued to cook now. So that's close to 35 years now. My main focus is LCCC, Light, Clean, Caribbean Cuisine. That's what I stand by, that's what we look for, and that's what we demonstrate here at Round Hill. A lot of clients who come here, they know what they come for. You know, they come for a lifestyle. They come to eat the purest food, they come to relax. So our expectations are very high. Well, Jamaica has the big bold flavors. You know, we have the Scotch bonnet, you have the jerk, the ginger's real spicy, and everything's super fresh. You know, fresh is when you're able to pick it and you're able to use it at the same time. I have a program here at Round Hill called See, Touch and Taste, where we're able to take the guests to our organic garden. They get to see it, they get to touch it, and we bring it back to the kitchen and get to taste it. That's fresh. Now, when you working with the freshest ingredients and freshest product, it takes you to the next level. Why come to Jamaica? To experience the people, the culture, and the food. Because it is unbelievable when you're able to come to an island and get all those three things wrapped into one. It's amazing. And they got great beaches and sunshines here too as well.
You've reached the final page of the magazine. Thanks so much for being with us on today's journey. Another Jamaica Magazine unfolds tomorrow, so come back same time on this same station. Until then, click on our social media pages for more informative features. While there, please subscribe to our pages and click that notification bell so you can stay in the know. I am Adrian Atkinson, encouraging you to stay safe.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.